crafty friends, this is Jenny from crafttestamies.com, and today we're going to take a look at the Dare to Be Artsy ink pad, and we're looking at the Archival Totally Black. Now, this is a hybrid ink, which means that it acts as both a pigment and a dye-based ink. It's supposed to be archival, non-fading, acid-free, good for raised surfaces, it's fast drying, you can get an inker, and what I was told is that this is the bomb when it comes to alcohol-based markers. So I ran it through its paces. Let's take a look. So the first thing I want to do is just open it up for you, and I'm going to be honest, this is the worst part of the whole product. The way the lid is made is that it has a very small little ridge, and so I have to feel like I'm working really hard to open it up. It also seals really well, which means that when it's closed, it's really airtight, but that makes it harder to open up. So honestly, if they could just fix the lid, make the lid easier to pull off, I would really, really love it. Now here you can see that it is a raised ink pad. It is pretty sizable. Now it has a linen top, it's not a foam pad. Mine is fraying a little bit. The linen is kind of letting go here around the edges, but really that did not impact the performance hardly at all, and you can just give it a little haircut if it bothers you. I've had this for about 4 weeks now, and I've been using it pretty heavily, and I've been pretty happy. So let me show you some samples. So on this first sample, I stamped it on watercolor paper. This is about 120 weight. I let it air dry. It only took a second. It absorbed very quickly into the paper. And then I did some watercolor, and actually this is like a watercolor marker. So I worked really wet. You can see that the paper is a little curvy, but even with all of that water, I did not get any lifting of the stamped image that I put on there. And I put a lot of water on here, so I'm really happy to report that with a water-based medium, it soaks in and stays permanent. On this sample, I actually stamped on vellum, and as you know, vellum is a smooth surface, and often a lot of things don't dry on vellum, but the Dare to Be Artsy Premium Die Pad did. Yay! So that means if you want to go ahead and make a layer and then put it on top of your cards or something, you can safely use this stamp pad for vellum, which I thought was really great. So people always want to know about Copics. So I'm not sure if these were Copics or another alcohol-based ink, but I stamped this on glossy paper, and actually I want to say this was photo paper, as a matter of fact, so it's super glossy, and I stamped on it and then used my alcohol-based inks, and as you can see, there you can still see all of those little fine detail lines. So that's also pretty exciting that you can use the same stamp pad for both water-based and alcohol-based media. Now, just because I wanted to kind of get a different view, here I used some colored pencils. And as you can see, I think it's really the stamp is great, but here you can see how fine those little lines are in the rubber stamp, and the detail really shows through. And I think that's an important thing to have in a black stamp pad, that you can get a nice, crisp image, especially on fine lines. This is another example on watercolor paper using a water-based media. This is actually twinkling H2Os, and I just used it like, you know, plain watercolor paint. And here's one more sample, and I'm not exactly sure why I even did this, other than this is, oh, I remember these are watercolor pencils, and again, it holds up fine to all of this. And here I have some mixed media tags for you, and on these tags I actually used the stamp pad on this fabric ribbon, and I did have to stamp it, I'm going to say maybe 2 or 3 times. I used a stamp positioner, but that's because this is actually like a burlap fabric, so it's really nubby, and it took 2 or 3 stamps for all of the ink to sink down in. But again, that being said, I think it's a pretty crisp image for such a textured fabric that I have going on there. I also used it on these little hearts, and then I did some watercoloring over the top. To get your crispest, blackest image, you're going to want to go over it twice. So for this next segment, what I'm doing is I'm actually going to show you how I stamp with it. I'm using my Misty Stamp Positioner, and I've got it kind of lined up the way I like it. And so I just want to show you how that looks. So this has one layer, and notice how it's more of a gray than a true black. So here I just want to show you what the difference is between stamping it once and stamping it twice. I recommend that if you really want it to be the darkest black it can be, use a stamp positioner or just take the time to line it up and stamp it 2 times. Okay, and as soon as I turned off the camera, I actually took this over to my other station to heat emboss. And really, this ink pad does not stay juicy long enough to emboss with it. So I would not recommend it for embossing. But as I mentioned before, it is great for both watercolors and wet media, as well as pencil work and Copics. And the fact that it leaves a nice image on vellum and fabric is just a nice bonus. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this demo and overview of the Dare to Be Artsy Hybrid Stamp Pad. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, leave them below. And as always, thank you for watching and have a crafty day.